Hello and welcome to the DroneOCan YouTube channel. So we are in Claresholm to start this week's episode, and we're here for a really unique reason. Now, coming through Claresholm is not new to us. We've previously filmed videos here regarding the Bluebird Motel. We've done road trips through this area, but like I said, this one's going to be unique and special, so let's get started, shall we? So let's start at the beginning. The entire idea for this episode and the entire concept of it stemmed from a tweet by Calgarian and his local historian Alan Zachrison, and he had posted on Twitter some excerpts from a 1914 Alberta road map, I guess you could say. It was the Alberta Road Guide, and again, it was from 1914. And it listed some of the most common routes in the province and gave driving directions for each of those routes. One of the routes featured in the booklet was Claresholm to Lethbridge. And I'll put up a graphic of his original photo so you don't have to try and follow along on the paper. But it lists mile by mile how to navigate from the Queen's Hotel here in Claresholm down to the Lethbridge Hotel in, surprise, Lethbridge. So naturally, the idea was, hey, let's see, can we follow the directions from 1914 to navigate from Claresholm to Lethbridge in 2023? Now, we know there's going to be a lot of challenges with doing this route. A lot of the landmarks are going to be gone. Obviously, even the Queen's Hotel here in Claresholm no longer exists, and the Lethbridge Hotel just burned down a few weeks ago. So the start and end routes have changed, but we've done a little bit of detective work, and I mean a really little bit of detective work, to try and locate where the Queen's Hotel was. So inside the pamphlet that Alan had posted on Twitter, there was a photo of the Queen's Hotel, and from what I could gather, it was shot looking south along the road here. And that building on the corner, down there just to the right of the tree where you see an election sign where that semi is just passing, that building, I believe, was visible in the photo of the hotel. So with a little bit of deduction and looking at the first directions on the map, I believe the Queen's Hotel was located quite close to where Frontier Western Supply is today. So that's going to be the starting point for this evening's journey. Now, we are making some concessions to modern technology. The map and the pamphlet are all in miles. All of the road signs that we have today, plus the odometer in the car, are all in kilometers. To save myself from having to do a lot of conversions as we drive, I brought out my old Oregon 450 GPS, and I have it set in miles. So I'm going to get Emily to drive, and as we pass by Frontier Western Supply, where I believe the Queen's Hotel was located, I'm going to reset the trip odometer, and we're going to start following the directions and see how far we can get. So while Mabel eats dinner and Emily gets us set up to start our trip, I'm just going to take a quick read here from the pamphlet. This route is the shortest trail between Calgary and Lethbridge, and the roads are in splendid condition for the greater part of the year. It is also the best route to travel between Calgary and Medicine Hat. All right, Mabel's excited. You can tell by the panting. I've got my finger on the trip odometer reset button here for when we drive by. Let's see how far we can get. All right, pulling out onto what today is Highway 2, passing Frontier. Trip odometer is reset. Our first instruction says we're supposed to go 0.6 of a mile and then turn left. Passing the Claresholm water tower here. Now, I did pre-scout some of this route on Google Maps just to kind of get an idea of how far we can go. But it's going to be interesting because I'm sure once we get closer to Lethbridge, the highway will have been realigned several times and undoubtedly be messed up. So I seem to have been pretty accurate with the location of the Queen's Hotel. As we are at 0.6 of a mile now, we have just made our left turn. Next instruction says at we are going to turn left, cross the railway. The railway tracks, of course, are long gone. And at 0.8, it's now the direct road east for 20 miles to Lethbridge via Barons. That last road there that we just passed out on the outskirts of Claresholm, was at 0.8. So that jives. Obviously, the boundary of Barons hasn't expanded much since the book was printed in 1914. The next item noted on the map is that at the 3.8 mile marker, there will be a telephone on the right, I believe it says. Nope, I lied. Telephone on the left at 3.8 miles. So we're approaching that 3.8 mile mark. We're at 3.4 right now. And it's interesting to see that, yes, there is still a house located at this point. So back in 1914, this was obviously a settled plot as well. In fact, I think that's an old school almost by the looks of it, but there would have been a phone at this point. The next instructions, or not instructions, but notes, say that at the 8.5 mark, there will be another phone on the left, and then there will be a phone on the right at 8.8. One of the things we had talked about on the drive down to Claresholm to get started on this was we weren't really sure what phone would have meant at that point. I mean, obviously it means telephone, but we weren't sure if these were just random phones that happened to be sitting on the side of the road, or if they were located in private residences or in some sort of public building. Not really sure. Probably, I'm guessing that they were most likely private residences that just happened to have telephone service. Coming up on 7 miles. You can see Mabel's along for the ride, enjoying herself. If this was actually 1914, I wonder if we would have her strapped on the running board of the car, or in one of those little dog carriers that you've probably seen online where the dog wears goggles. Maybe, I don't know. So coming up, we're at 8.4 right now. So here we are at 8.5. There is a house here on the left. Now, I'm not expecting the distances to be perfect because obviously the method of measurement I'm using for calculating these distances is likely more accurate than what they used when they put this book together. And 8.8 on the right side, there was a phone. There doesn't appear to be anything at this point here. Next instruction says at 10.8, there will be a telephone on the left. So by my calculations on the GPS, 10.8 is at this intersection here. Actually, about 10.9. I suspect the phone they were referring to is probably in this farmyard here. Just another mile down the road, at 11.8, it says telephones with no direction. So I'm assuming perhaps one on each side of the road. So 11.8 puts us in here. Not really anything of significance to note at that mark now. Now it says at 12.8 there will be a telephone on the right. We're at 12.7 right now, so 12.8 is going to be right about where that intersection is here, or this is probably where they were referring to, this intersection. So I've got it at about 12.9, but nothing on the right side. There is an old, yard and whatnot on the left. The next thing noted is that at 15.4 there is a blacksmith shop, which I'm hoping you can see there is actually written on this map. Instead of doing the GPS and mileage, it might have been interesting to attempt this following the little crossroads and counting those off instead. That would probably have been more accurate for, for the method in use at the time the map was made. Also noted on the map across from the blacksmith shop is a school. Now, the county down here has done a really good job of marking a lot of the old school locations with markers, so it'll be interesting to see if we see a school marker coming up on the left side here at some point. We're just about at that 15.4 mile mark now. So I'm thinking, based on our GPS, this yard here on the right is where the blacksmith shop was. Position the camera so you can actually see it. And I'm just scanning on the left here. I don't see a school marker, but the school could have been a bit off the road. So we have about 5 miles to go with nothing else noted on the map. Our next major turn is going to be a right to the south, which is going to take us into the town of Barons. So on the map, there's a road you can see that is marked to Carmangay. Now, when I was measuring this out on Google Maps, I believe that road is the one where the modern highway, the alignment that the modern highway follows. So I believe to get our proper distances, we will cross the modern highway and then head into Barons from the north, rather than following the highway and cutting into Barons from the west. Our eventual right turn at Barons at 21.8 miles will kind of give me a good idea of how uncalibrated I am with my current mileage. We've been out a little bit so far on what I think have been the milestones or the markers or places of note, but we'll see. If nothing else, while we cruise towards Barons, it's a good opportunity to take a look at the modern day road and think about what this would have been like back in 1914. You know, the road was in splendid condition most of the year round, so clearly it was probably just dirt, maybe a little bit of gravel at that point, but none of the luxurious pavement that we enjoy today. I wouldn't even be surprised, the few automobiles that were around at that time, this might not have been much more than a dirt track through the prairie at that point. So we're coming up to the modern intersection here of Highway 23, and we're just about at 20.8 miles. So we're not very far off. All of these grid roads, or the grid roads that are running north-south, are 1 mile apart east-west. So we're going to go 1 mile down here and then turn into Barons, which you can see just off to my right there. So we get off the pavement for the first time on this trip. While this is obviously closer to what they experienced, I still suspect that this road would have been considered like a super highway to the drivers of that era. So I'm at 21.8 now, so we're very close to the intersection. We're not that far off, maybe about 1/10 of a mile is all. So this is Range Road 234. And we are now making our turn and heading towards Barons. as Emily was just saying off camera, you know, we should be fairly accurate because obviously the surveyors did a really good job when they surveyed this territory. So that 0.1 of a mile we're off is most likely because I didn't know the exact spot of the Queen's Hotel back in Claresholm. Okay, so we're coming up, we're at our 22.8 where we're supposed to be making our take the gravel, yeah. We'll take this gravel road, which was probably, yeah, that's exactly 22.9, so that jives with our 1/10 of a mile off. So we almost reconnected with the main highway. You could tell they obviously realigned, or, well, not necessarily realigned, but when they built the highway, they made the curves more sweeping and whatnot. So this would have been the original road heading into Barron's from Calgary, according to the 1914 map that we're following. So
there's a train.
Oh, yep, train coming. We have lots of time to get across the track. So the instructions: cross the railway, which as you can see is still an active rail line, and turn right. So we're heading into Barron's on the old alignment. Next instructions are turn left/east at 23.8. We're at 23.6 now, so we're going to keep going a little bit. We'll probably be turning at 23.9, given how we're just off that little bit. So we think this is our turn. 23, we're actually right at 23.8. We maybe should have gone one more block, but that doesn't matter. The results are going to be the same. We follow this for 24.4, and then we're going to turn right and head south. So yes, we did turn one too soon. That 0.1 of a mile would be about the length of a block, and the one block over here to our right that you're currently looking towards is the main street of Barron's. So minor detour, but the idea is the same. So we have to turn right at 24.4, but we couldn't. That road doesn't go through, so we're going to cut over that block to where we should have been and then head out of town to our left here. Yeah, this road goes out further than the one we were on. Like I said, in the end, it won't make a huge difference because it's all going to work out the same in the wash. Ooh, neat old car here on the left. So we're coming up to the end here, end of town. We turn right and start heading south. We're at 24 point almost 3, so a little off. Now we're kind of like a 1/10 of a mile under the mileage shown on the map. So we have a couple miles to go before anything shows up, before it shows where there was another telephone. As I said earlier, it'll be very interesting to see how far we can get with this route. I know it's going to become complicated because obviously Highway 3 did not exist at the time the map was printed, and that's going to be a big impact. The CP rail yards, which had been located in Lethbridge, I don't know if they were in Lethbridge in 1914, but those were relocated to Kip in the mid-80s, so that's going to obliterate a lot of the roads that we may have needed to follow. But like I said, part of the adventure here was just seeing exactly how far we can get with these 1914 directions. Not the only ones out here on this beautiful early, well, I can't really call it early spring, out here on this beautiful spring evening. So 26.6, it said there was a telephone on the left. There's a few bushes there that probably were a windbreak at one point for something, but any evidence of where that telephone would have been here on the left side has long since been obliterated. Now it says at 27.6 we should be crossing the railway, so that'll be another good indication of just how well calibrated our distances are with the map. So we're definitely a little off. We're at about 27.7 now, and we're just coming up to the railway that it said we would be crossing at 27.6. So this is probably the furthest we've been off so far, but that's okay. At least the tracks are still here and we know they're still active. I mean, it's also possible the tracks have been moved a bit since 1914 as well. Next instructions are at 32 miles, we turn left and east. So while we have a couple miles here with no markers to look for or anything, it's interesting to think that in 1914, the best way to get from Calgary to Medicine Hat was via Lethbridge. That blows my mind because you would have assumed that given that the railway came through from Medicine Hat to Calgary, that there would have been better roads that paralleled the railway. But for some reason, according to this booklet anyway, this would have been the way to go to Medicine Hat from Calgary. The map provides a really good illustration of what I was talking about with the layout of the grid roads out here on the prairies. You can see between Claresholm and Barrons, when we were traveling in an east-west direction, how close they are, and then how they get further apart as we go from Barrons to what on this map is Noble, what is today Nobleford. And again, the roads that run north-south were all spaced 1 mile apart. The roads that run east-west are all spaced 2 miles apart. So, first little problem we've run into that we can't follow completely. We're supposed to go 32 miles and then make our left, but we have to make a little jog here because you can see, well, that looks like it was a road allowance, or probably is a road allowance. At this point, the road no longer goes through there. Either that or the map makers figured that this little slight curve to the left wasn't worth noting. And it's amazing. This is not fog, but the soil here is so alkaline that it's all this, I don't know if it's looks like salt or whatever that has blown up in the wind and is obscuring our vision. But just like that, here comes Nobleford. So we're coming up on mile 32, where our instructions are say turn left or east. I think 32 is going to be right about at this intersection here. So obviously the road has been realigned a little bit, but I think when we make this corner and cross the tracks, we're going to be back on the original route. Because this is 31.9. And it does say we would cross, oh no, I'm looking at the wrong instructions, but we're pretty close. So the instructions, there was like, it said turn, make a jog to the right, turn and cross the railway, which we just crossed the railway, and then we're going to turn left and east. I'm going to assume they mean like right here, because we're coming up on things too fast. I can't keep up with the maps. Let's see, at mile 32, did I mess that up? Nope, that was mile 32. We're back on track. I'll also apologize for sections where the audio level fluctuates. I keep forgetting that as I look down like that to look at the map, that I'm then speaking directly into the microphone instead of over the microphone. So the instruction said at mile 32.5, turn right and south. Well, we're only at 32.4 or 3.7, so probably because of the road alignments our mileage got a little bit messed up, but we are coming into the village of Nobleford, which on the map is just noted as Noble. So I don't know when the name was changed to Noble Ford. It's also interesting on the map, back where we just crossed those tracks is where it listed Noble, where it said it was a post office. Yet all the housing out this direction is newer. So I'm wondering if the village got relocated a bit further south at some point, perhaps in conjunction with the name change. So mile 33.3, we turn left. We're only at 33.1 here, so I'm assuming it's going to be one of these next two intersections. Probably the next one. That looks like a more major intersection. These are just into residential areas, although they all seem to lead out of town. This is Ruby Street. No through traffic. Well, it might have worked.
It looks like it ends.
Okay, well, we'll take the next one. That was 33.3, so we'll take the next one. This one doesn't have a no through traffic sign, and it doesn't go through anywhere. This is really going to mess up our mileage now, because
It goes somewhere.
I don't know if this is going to go through all the way, or this is just into a neighborhood. We'll see. We'll see. I don't have an actual map from 2023 in front of me to know if this is a through road or not. I mean, it didn't have a sign, whereas the last one did, so... And this is the end. Yeah, we're screwed. Okay.
This is just a field. There's nothing that goes this way.
No, but we were supposed to be turning and going south here. So I think it looks like the road to the south kind of got obliterated. Either that or our mileage got so out of whack that we should have been one more, because it looks like the major modern road is just a block further south of us. So we're going to try that. And this is going to be a real challenge now, because now our mileage is really whacked. Since this is the point from here, between here and Kip, where I really was expecting us to lose the route, I think what I might do is reset the trip odometer here and then just mentally do the calculations on the map, because I'm going to assume that next road down there would have been our 33.3 turn. So that's what I'm going to do here at this. Yeah, we'll go down to that next intersection and then I'll reset, and like I said, I'll have to do some quick math on the fly, which is code for don't go until there's somebody pushing you to go, until I get this set up. Reset trip data. Yes. Okay. Rock and roll. 33.3, so we're going to go 1 mile, then turn right and south. All right, trip computer has been reset on the Oregon 450. So now I just have to kind of mentally note we started at 33.3. We go 1 mile, then turn right and south. Some nice new houses here, kind of on this little rise overlooking the prairies. So this is our turn. We're a little over a mile. We're at 1.1 miles, but again, because of that screw up and how the roads were realigned, this is likely the road they wanted us to be on. We should be coming up on our next turn here in a little bit, about 0.2 of a mile. So the next road that we get that heads off to the left or the east will be the one that we take. This looks like a driveway, but I think I see a crossroad up ahead here. Yeah, there's a yield sign. That will be our target. So now, according to our 1914 map, we're going to go 1 mile. child waving to us from that window. I don't know if you'll see that on camera. We're going to go 1 mile to the east and then turn south again. So because our mileage on the GPS is so screwy, I'm going to try and navigate using the distances on the grid roads here as much as possible for this next little bit. I think that'll just be easier. Okay, we're going to make our right here. For those of you following along at home on Google Earth or Google Maps or an old road atlas, this is Range Road 231 and Township Road 10-4. And we are now heading south, and we got 2 miles to go along this stretch before our next navigation instruction. Okay, we made it down here. We're now, this one's designated as a haul route, which kind of makes sense. This old road would be still of some sort of significance. So I believe we go 2 miles before we get our next directions. So a couple of lessons I've picked up already. Number one, I should have brought a pencil so I can cross out these instructions as we pass them. It's kind of hard when you look away from the sheet, then you come back to try and figure out where you are exactly, because other than the mile designations, the instructions are all like turn left or east, turn right and south. And so if you kind of lose track of which one you just did last. So that would have been my first takeaway. My second takeaway is that obviously thanks to the improvements in vehicle technologies, even if this is only a 2012 Kia, compared to the Model Ts and things that they would have been driving back in 1914, between that and the improved road conditions, these instructions come fast and furious at you. So if between trying to record and follow the instructions, it gets really, really confusing. As an example, we're at an intersection. I don't know if we're supposed to turn here or not, and we're crossing it, and I'm going to check the map here as Emily stops. So here's where things get really confusing. I'm going to try and read this without speaking into the microphone. But it's like the last instruction we followed said turn left and east. That was at 36.3. Then we're supposed to go 2 miles and then turn left, direct south. And I'm like, well, if I just turn left to go east, if I make another left, unless this road makes a 180-degree turn somewhere, we're going to turn left would take us north. So I'm not sure what's going on there. The other thing is there is a railway track ahead of us that isn't really mentioned on this map until another like 4 miles down the road. So they've mentioned every other railway crossing we've come across, unless this is a spur line that didn't exist in 1914. I don't know why this map is, or why this crossing is not listed, but I think we carry on. I don't think we came the 2 miles since our last direction, so we're just going to keep going and see what that looks like. Crossing the tracks here. So trying to follow the directions on the map, it does look like we jogged back and forth over the railway a couple times between Noble and Kip. So I'm going to assume that maybe that's why it's not all listed, but I don't think we had gone the 2 miles we needed to, so I'm pretty sure it's our next right.
Driveway.
Yeah, this is a driveway. That's not our next right. I think it'll be our next right is the one we're supposed to go on. I really don't understand, though, the whole turn left, direct south for 4.2 miles.
Maybe it was a typo. I mean, oh, he's a baby.
Yeah, beautiful horse. So this is a good sign. This is obviously a major road because we have a stop sign here. And we're just going to go under the assumption that it was a typo and that instead of turning left and south, we should be turning right and going south. This is Kip Road, and obviously, as we talked about here, Kip is our next destination. So it makes sense that roads that were the major route between Calgary and Lethbridge would still be the more significant gravel roads today. So I'm quite confident we're where we're supposed to be. So we have a little gap in the action because it said once we got on this road, we go for 4.3 miles, cross the railway, and then turn left and start heading southeast. So I'm going to use these next 4 miles as a chance to put a little charge in the camera, because running the camera and the gimbal constantly since leaving Claresholm means the battery's getting down into that 20% range or so. So we'll see you in 4 miles. For you, it'll be just like that. So we're coming up on the CP Rail marshalling yards. Our instructions are cross the railway, turn left to go southeast. It looks like the road is going to naturally make that curve to the southeast. I don't know how messed up the train tracks are because of the moving of the yard out here in the mid-80s, but I'm going to assume that we're going to be heading in that general direction regardless. So we might not actually cross the tracks anymore, but we will be still heading southeast towards Kip. I suspect that the original rail line is probably in here in the marshalling yards, and the old road has probably also been obliterated a bit by the parking lot and things here. You can see the road kind of makes a jog up here, so that might have been where the old alignment was at one point. So obviously this is all new. I seem to remember that Kip was basically obliterated off the map. So the instructions are turn left and cross the CP railway, which I guess we will attempt to do.
Well, you might spit us out on that side, and then you cross back over and continue.
I think let's go to the left here, because I imagine the old road would have gone to Colehurst, which is on this side of the highway. So I don't want to pop back over the highway. We'll see. It said turn left, cross the bridge over the CP railway. So that's got to be the tracks that ran between Kip and Colehurst up here somewhere. And then it says direct road down 10% grade, but we cross a culvert at the bottom, cross a steel bridge over the Belly River, then curve right up a 10% grade. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that that bridge and that road alignment are long gone. So I'm thinking, with all the changes that have happened with the highway and the rail lines and everything, that the rest of these instructions are going to be pretty much impossible to follow. I can't imagine there's a 10% grade and a bridge at the bottom and then a 10% grade up. That would have obviously been coming, I'm likely referring to the coulees and the river bottom coming into Lethbridge. I'm pretty sure there's no crossing there anymore other than the one that comes in on the main Highway 3. So I think we may have ridden this horse about as far as we can, but we will see. We're gonna see here how we can go. I can see Lethbridge in the horizon, or on the horizon over there.
To at least see like a little bridge abutment or something.
Yeah, another.
Oh, look at that green motorhome.
So we just crossed the set of tracks again here. So we may be kind of at this part of the map, but I think what's going to happen is we're going to get rivered out here, basically. We're coming up on a major road here. We'll have to see what we can see. So this is 25, which would go north to Diamond City. So you can kind of see on the map here, that's this intersection here. So I think we're going to take 25 and head south. So that could very well be the old road that we would have been following in back in 1914. So we're out of the gravel, back onto a modern highway here. So yeah, I definitely suspect that this would have been the road that we should have ended up on. following the map. And then basically we drop down the coulee. Sorry. So then basically, according to the map, we would drop down the coulee, cross the steel bridge over the Belly River, which today is known as the Old Man River, curve right up the 10% grade, go under the railway viaduct, which would be the high-level bridge in Lethbridge, and then make a left and then a right, and we would have arrived at the hotel in Lethbridge. So they listed it as the entire trip 141.9 miles from Calgary via Claresholm to Lethbridge. So we're going to take the road as best we can into Lethbridge. We'll go up and under the viaduct as the instructions give us. Obviously, like I said, the old roads are long gone and have been replaced with the modern highways, but we'll finish it in spirit anyway. That's the way that the 1914 map wants us to do it. That's the way we're gonna do it. So now we have a big fancy exit ramp to take us down into Lethbridge. Obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, I'm assuming back in 1914 the road would have just gently curved and then gone down the hill here into the city. So this is the portion of our instructions where it would have said direct road down 10% grade, cross culvert at bottom, cross the bridge over the Belly River, and then curve right up the 10% grade. So a good look at the viaduct there off to our right. That's the viaduct, a high-level bridge that would have been mentioned or is mentioned in the 1914 book, and we're going to go up the grade and then go underneath it here. The little steel bridge that it mentions crossing the Belly River, long since gone. I'll bet you if we look, I believe it's off to the left. You might not be able to see it from my angle. There are still bridge abutments over there that probably are where the old road went. So it would have been over there somewhere. And we would have then gone up our 10% grade. So we would have been coming up our 10% grade, and then it said the road curved off to the right here, which is probably following close along this old 1st Avenue South alignment. And just as it said, curve up to the right and go under the viaduct. Now, if I've got my history right, the high-level bridge here opened in 1909, or construction was completed in 1909. So you can only imagine what an absolute marvel this would have been to the people of 1914 coming down into Lethbridge here. Absolutely phenomenal. Still amazes me even to this day. The Lethbridge Brewery Gardens. The brewery is also long gone. It was torn down, I believe, in the early 1990s. I know it was still there when I worked at the nearby Wendy's in 1990, so all apartments now and condos. And we're going to go straight across here where the old road would have carried us right into downtown Lethbridge. So I think this is probably the right turn that they would have had you take in these instructions. And right down here, you can see there's still the burnt remains of the Lethbridge Hotel, or they've been in the process of demolishing it. So this is where our guidebook would have had us finish. And not much left of it now. Just a few shell. Was quite a landmark in the city for many years, but long gone now.
So we were thinking that they probably instructed you from hotel to hotel, because Calgary to Claresholm would have been a full day, and then you'd spend the night in Claresholm, and then you'd get up the next day and continue on to Lethbridge to this hotel where you'd stop for the night and carry on wherever you were going.
Okay, so that ended up being a lot of fun. So huge shout out to Alan Zackerson for posting that 1914 pamphlet on Twitter and giving us the motivation to get out and try it. Follow Alan Zackerson, at Alan Zackerson on Twitter, and Old Calgary Sidewalk Stamps on Facebook. Lots of fun. I think it gives a whole new appreciation to what navigating on the prairies would have been like over 100 years ago, trying to follow those directions. Interesting that I think we uncovered a typo in a 109-year-old document that we were saying back there that could really mess somebody up, because you would get to that intersection, and when you'd have to be using the position of the sun to determine whether you were going south, and then say, well, wait a minute, if I'm turning south, that's a right, but it says go left, but that would be taking me north. And, it's just, it really, really highlights how spoiled we are with navigation today, and GPS, and, maps of the world literally in the palm of our hand. And really interesting to see the pioneering spirit. The map itself says, our last instruction was at 53 point something miles. So assuming, that they were thinking that these were trips you could do in a day, 50 miles in a day, that would have been a few hours in a Model T. I mean, let's not forget that when they built the railways, they put those towns all, 10 miles apart from each other, or 6 to 10 miles apart from each other, because that was the most you could haul with horses. So being able to cover 50 miles in a day would have been quite an accomplishment for them. For us, we do it without even thinking about it. But great appreciation for what happened in the past. Great appreciation to Alan for posting that pamphlet and giving us the idea, and great appreciation to you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.